I'm Dave Kaiser from CCX Media. Thanks for joining us for this special COVID-19 update. We are joined by Hennepin County Commissioner Mike Opat, representing District 1, which is part of our Northwest coverage area. Mike, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
I'm fine, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us from the home office here. Let's talk a little bit in general about Hennepin County. I don't think a lot of people understand the response the county has had to COVID-19. Give us a brief overview of the scope of the response from the county's standpoint.
Well, it's been a multifaceted response we've had to make. I mean, it's affected every part of our business, as you can imagine, like it has every part of all of our lives. So we're busy on a number of fronts. Internally to the county organization, of course, we are working from home, except in places where we cannot work from home, and that would be our correctional institutions, for instance. Right. And as we go about responding to child protection calls and investigations and things like that, of course, the medical examiner is unfortunately still going to be busy and making some pickups and such. Too many of those these days, unfortunately, but mostly we're working from home. We have a great technological base to do that from. So folks have laptops, and we also have some good programs that allow us to do things like economic assistance for people. We've discovered a lot of upside is a bad word, but a lot of potential, I guess, in the fact that everyone has phones and can transact business for economic assistance or other government business readily, and the governor's waivers to relax some of the in-person requirements has really helped us do that. So that's been good. I mentioned our correctional facilities, 4 of them, 2 juvenile, 2 for adults, and we've taken folks out of there that can be safely not incarcerated, and they're being managed otherwise with ankle bracelets or visits from probation officers. But otherwise, we've been able to keep those populations largely COVID-free, a handful of positives, and we're treating those folks. So it's been very busy, just a magnificent county response really in terms of containing the disease in places where we operate, and I'm very proud of the staff and the work we've done.
Let's leave people at this point. We'll mention it a couple times during the interview. The website, hennepin.us, the place to go for a lot of the information. They have a special popular links area with some of the information about COVID response from the county. Mike, you wanted to talk about a couple specific areas within the county's response, and one is hotels. Tell us a little bit about how the county and COVID response and hotels go together.
Yeah, it's certainly not intuitive. And if somebody asked me a year ago or told me a year ago that the county would be leasing hotels to have people live there to keep them apart, I would have said they were crazy. But of course, part of our role is to, as a public health authority, is to look after the vulnerable populations in the county. And a big population that is vulnerable are the homeless. And typically if they're in shelters, I don't know how many folks have visited a homeless shelter, but it's not a place where you can spread around and observe very effective social distancing. So not for all, but for some who have deep end medical concerns or histories, those folks we refer to, and we're housing them in hotels until we can get by this. And that's been very effective too. So as people know, and we've heard in an infinite number of times, it's all about keeping the hospitals free of being overrun for the ICU beds. We have had, again, just a handful of positives in all of the homeless population. There's a particular hotel that's working with those folks, and I think maybe 1 to 3 admissions to HCMC from that. So that's working very well. It's very expensive, but that's what the Federal CARES Act money is funding, things like that. So it's been a success. It's not without controversy. Yeah. But in the end, we're trying to save some lives here, and I think it's working very well.
Let's move ahead to the library, something that a lot of people count on from the county. Tell us about the current status and process maybe moving ahead as we tape this in the middle of March or May.
Yeah, the libraries have been challenged. Very hard to decide to close the libraries, but we did that along with the other general closures. We have reopened for curbside pickup for folks, and at 8 locations. Brooklyn Park is the one in our district that is available for those pickups. Libraries are an essential service, we think, on the county board, and we're going to keep that curbside option open and explore even, how can we gradually turn the dial and open libraries for internet use, if nothing else. A lot of the kids may have devices, but not internet use at home. We are working with our staff to get them comfortable. It's been a little disappointing, I'll say, that we've had some of our library staff suggest that library services are for the rich and the elite. I certainly do not agree with that. We'll work through that, and in the end, I and my colleagues and the county works to serve the residents to the people, or the residents and the people, and we're not, so we have to manage how that happens with employees, but the residents come first.
And again, if people want updates on the library status or some of the ways to do the curbside, again, hennepin.us, you can find out more information there. Let's talk PPE struggles, some of the things that you're seeing at the county level. What have you seen, and how are people possibly stepping forward to help out?
Well, shortages has been the word, and the shortage of the N95 masks, the ones that are the most, that protect both the wearer and others in the room, they're the ones we struggle with. Had some great success with a little company in Northeast Minneapolis who's figured out how to clean and reuse those masks.
Oh.
A novel technology. No one was aware of it before. And we have purchased one of those machines, and we're using it for our correctional institutions. So we're trying to hang on to those masks, always have enough where we have people who have to eat together, live together, be in the same building. So that's where we're using those, and of course at the hospital. Otherwise, we're doing the best we can to get. We've taken some donations. We found a couple vendors that have been able to supply us with gowns and masks and face masks. And so it's getting better. It's not solved. And as we gradually reopen, of course, there's going to be more of a demand. I fully expect us to strongly encourage, if not require, masks to be worn by everyone who comes to a county building. And of course, then I think it's going to be on us to try to have some available should people not know or forget and have business, let's say, in the courts. So it's a challenge.
Final note we want to touch on, let's talk about assistance for some key groups, small businesses and renters. How is the county looking at those two areas?
Well, the federal government, and thanks to our senators, Klobuchar and Smith and Representative Phillips in particular, we received a CARES Act direct appropriation from the federal government, so it did not have to go through the state. The county is larger than 500,000 people, so Hennepin and Ramsey each received an appropriation, and the charge is to get that to people who need it. Of course, we're buying PPE and paying for the additional expenses we have, but we're also looking at groups who are particularly affected and really struggling. Of course, small businesses are one. So we established a $10 million, actually a $15 million appropriation to provide grants to small businesses to help them pay the rent, keeping a few employees on, maybe pay the employer part of the health insurance, stay alive here for a couple months until they can get back open. And then with renters, of course, if people aren't working, I have a particular soft spot for the food service workers, with every restaurant closed and the prospects of their future being very much in doubt. We're going to help folks pay rent. We're taking a 2 to 3 month look at that, and we'll make the payments to the landlords. It's not just going to be a cash out the door thing, but helping people stay in place and hoping they can make it back to employment and back to paying their rent. The last thing I just mentioned is for folks with property taxes. Of course, May 15th is the first half of property taxes for those of us who do not escrow. I'm not one of those, so it's all on autopilot for me. But for folks who owe $100,000 or less, if they do not escrow, if they make that payment themselves, we've granted a 2-month delay, so they will not have to make that payment until July 15th. And all of this, Dave, we're going to evaluate on the run. Every bit of it is being looked at every day. The county staff have been working around the clock, particularly our leaders, our department directors have been called upon to be creative and do things they never thought they would ever be doing. And as I mentioned to someone earlier today, it's exhausting. It's tragic, but it's also exciting in a way. I know that sounds odd, but it's exciting to see people rise to the call, and that's what's happening.
Final note, just anything you want to say the residents of District 1, what from the county and from Mike Opat would you say?
I'd say hang in there. I mean, I think we're going to come out on the end of this. I had a nice talk with Mayor Lundy. of course, Brooklyn Park is the largest city in the district. They do such a great job, and the lines of communication are always open with the mayor and city manager. So we go back and forth about what the city needs. And it's, and that's been, that same sort of communication is happening a lot. But as we all know, Brooklyn Park's a complicated place and does so many things so well. One of the things they do is communicate with the county.
Very good. Well, we appreciate your communications today and taking a little time for us. And again, as we mentioned a few times, hennepin.us to find out more information. Commissioner Opat, thank you very much for your time. We hope to talk to you again soon.
Anytime, Dave. Thank you.
Learn more about the connection at ccxmedia.org and follow us on social media.